What interesting, wholesome, or NSFW story have you been dying to tell, but nobody on AskReddit ever asks the right question? My grandma's mom died when she was little. Not long afterward, their priest walked by the house while her dad was gardening. The priest basically told her dad, "She died because you don't send your kids to mass often enough." My great-granddad sprayed the priest with a garden hose. And that's how our family became Protestant. My dad kept a journal every day from the day my sister was born, 2 years older than me, until I was around 15. Most of the time it was just the facts of what everyone did that day and what the weather was. I remember him setting us down in the home office every so often to rehash what we each had done in the previous days if he hadn't had time to type up entries the few days before. I never really thought much of it at the time, but now that I'm in my mid-20s and have a printed copy of the full journal, I now see the full value of it. I can turn to any random date and know exactly what we did. It is full of so many things I didn't remember and also with things I didn't realize was going on. There are several times Dad references money issues that I wasn't aware of. It's sometimes sad to read how excited he was about several get-rich-quick schemes and knowing how it didn't pan out for him. It's also filled with so many funny little stories too. One of my favorites is when I was around 3 or 4 and I was saying a prayer before dinner and I prayed thanks for nothing and my parents told me I was under no circumstances ever allowed to pray that prayer again. I don't think my dad realized at the time how special it would be to have those journals so many years later, but I truly wouldn't trade them for anything. One of my best friends is on disability and is home pretty much 24/7. Because he's on disability, he tends to live in some shitty apartments. One day someone knocks on the door, and he answers it half asleep to this nervous-looking guy in a hoodie. The guy immediately hands out a packet and my friend groggily takes it in his hands. Suddenly the guy goes white as a sheet. My friend glances down and notices he's holding a package of some kind of white powder. The guy snatches it back and runs. It was obviously meant for the dealer who lived upstairs. I guess this is wholesome. One time I was having sex with my GF in the kitchen of her parents' house, and when I pulled out, I spunked all over her dad's favorite thermos on the counter. I really liked her dad. He was a good guy. I couldn't stand the thought of him drinking out of a cup I came all over. So I took the thermos and made up a story about how I borrowed and lost it. Then I got him a really nice stainless steel one. In first grade, my friend and I made a game we called Slingshot, which basically involved throwing each other down the small hill on the schoolyard. So one time I put a little extra stank on my throw. He flew down the hill and landed funny, screams in pain and immediately starts crying. He went home early and it turned out that his collarbone exploded like a cheap firecracker. It never healed properly and he had arm and shoulder issues on through high school. I know he never blamed me for it, because I brought it up regularly and apologized profusely. But I still feel awful about it to this day. Nearly 30 years later, I met and slept with a girl while away overseas. We had a good time for a day or two. Then both headed home, never expecting to meet again. Fast forward a couple of weeks and she invited me to visit her in America. At the time I'm pretty poor and from Australia, so it's an expensive trip. She hears this, doesn't flinch, and tells me not to worry about money. At this point I was pretty cautious but curious, so I ended up going. Spent a couple of days with her in LA before her family proceeded to invite me to travel Europe with them. Off I went. It ended up being the trip of a lifetime but didn't work out with a girl. I think I almost got murdered at a gas station last night. Stop in to fill up. Brightly lit. Doubles as a truck stop on the I-35 corridor. Start filling my car when a guy starts talking to me from a distance. Asks me where my boyfriend is. I tell him at home, waiting on me. A lie, I'd just left his place. Wants to know where I'm going. I decline. Tries to get me to go into the truck stop and have dinner. Nippy. Tries to get me to go to his truck and see his puppy. Oldest trick in the murder book. Fuel yuck and filled up. Did not leave my car or turn my back on the guy. Ducked off into the steady traffic, so following me would be harder if he chose to pursue. This wasn't even at a weird Early morning stop. It was 9 p.m. My grandparents ran into their neighbors from down the street of their house in Chicago while on a trip in the middle of China. Neither of them knew the others were taking a trip. I walked onto a nude photo shoot in the middle of the woods once. These two girls were ahead of me on this riverside walking path. One was sitting on a fallen tree, and the other was photographing her. Except the girl on the tree was butt naked and spreading her legs. Obviously I was embarrassed, so I tried avoiding them on the way back. Ended up getting lost for a few hours. Had to do the old follow the power lines deal until I hit a road. Followed the road until I hit cell service. Downloaded Uber. As I was putting in my card info, my phone died. I think I have 9 lives like a cat because I've used 3 of them so far. Went over a cliff in a car. Not a scratch on me. Rear-ended on the highway going about 70 miles per hour. Nothing. Got shot at while driving with my window down on the highway going 55 miles per hour with a paintball gun. The paintball passed in front of my head at the last second to splatter on the rear passenger. CHP was baffled because I should have been hit. I'm avoiding all modes of transport once I hit life number 9, which sucks because I'm such a gearhead. The other day I saw a dude in a power wheelchair doing slaloms and skids between a giant sidewalk flower pots on University Ave. I like to think they just got a motorized wheelchair and were testing it out. Or just having fun. Not very interesting, but spooked me a bit. I was sitting at a park around midnight in my car and another car pulls up on my passenger side right next to me and shuts off the car. I kinda start tweaking a bit as he opens his door and steps out. He looked about 40 to 50. So I've got my hand resting on my door locks. He closed his car door, turned around and reached for my door handle. I quickly locked it as he pulled the handle. And then he leaned down and peeked into the cracked window and just said, "Oops, sorry." I kinda just stared at him and didn't say anything back when another car pulls up on the other side and he goes and gets in that one. I ended up just driving off not to spook anybody else out. My cousin's pet rat stole my double-decker taco and dragged it into the wall. When me and my twin were in middle school, she made this character up called Superbone. It was basically a cartoon /Y dog bone with a cape. There were multiple variations of it. Halloween bone, Easter bone, Batman bone, etc. She would draw it everywhere. On her folders, the whiteboard, on her desk, homework, etc. Soon, everyone was asking for her to draw a bone for them. One day my mom is looking at the newest bone my twin drew on the whiteboard at our house and was utterly shocked. Especially after she looked at some other bone doodles. She called us down and asked who drew it and where did we learn how to do this and who told us about it, and God forbid why was it on all of my twins' folders. For the entirety of my twins' bone drawing career, everyone thought they were dicks. People were commissioning her well, as much as middle schoolers can to draw basically costume dicks. She had been turning in homework with what looked like dicks all on it. Both her and I were ducking clueless.